The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. The constant drive for personal self-improvement is really just about self-aggression. It's the psychological gap of what you think you should be or should have already become. And then every desire or move towards improving yourself becomes almost a show of violence or force towards your old self. This creates a split in your sense of identity that will always make you feel inadequate about your life, because you will never be the person that is perfect. And this form of thinking creates this need for perfection, as if what you are already makes it impossible for you to be happy or to be content. But this entire paradigm that you need to achieve a certain thing in order to be content and see yourself as successful is extremely rude and unkind to yourself. Think about yourself as a baby. Imagine your parents treating you as if you are worthless because you are not productive enough. Like you're just crying and shitting yourself all the time, and therefore you have no value for society. Or imagine that their value for you as a baby is determined by the fact that once you grow up, you're going to be a hyper-productive entrepreneur, or you're going to save the world from cancer, or whatever it might be. So this entire framing of something not being good enough and having to be good enough in order to be deserving of love is extremely toxic. The same also works for if you have pets. Like imagine putting some productivity metric on your cat or dog, and if it doesn't meet this requirement, then you don't love it. If this all sounds extremely silly to you, then why would you do this to yourself? Why would you not just love yourself for who you are right now? Now, it's easy to say, just love yourself, right? It's not very productive to look at the mirror and just tell you that you love yourself if it feels dishonest. But if you do this and you notice it feels dishonest, then we are actually working towards something, because then you might ask, why is that the case? Why do you not love yourself? What is it that is preventing this, wholeness? And if your mind then comes up with, because I have not done what I told myself to do, I don't trust myself enough, I am addicted to this stuff, or I'm not spiritually advanced enough, or I feel full of guilt or shame, then this is a lead. You can self-reflect to the point where you can truly find the events that led you up to experience yourself this way. But what you really want to do is want to notice how you do not need to be in this relationship of violence with yourself in order to fix this. You actually have to do the opposite. You need compassion and care and companionship, and treat yourself how you would have loved to be treated as a child. Independent of if you had good parents or bad parents, or how your parents treated you, imagine how you would like to have been treated, and then treat yourself this way. If it has been overly aggressive in your own childhood, then you need an extra amount of compassion and an extra amount of care. And if your parents actually have been very soft on you, then you might believe you need to be even harder on yourself and even be more brutal and more stoic or rough. And most likely this is not the case. Most likely you still have just lacked the support that you needed in order to feel completely loved, independent of some external success metric. Self-improvement has actually made more money by leaning towards the self-violence, because telling you that you should be ashamed of yourself and that you suck and your guilt is justified riles people up to want to fight against it. And by this desire to fight against it, you get energized for a short moment, or some certain time frame, and it might push you out maybe a rut that you've been stuck in, right? I'm not saying that this strategy can't work, but it won't work on the long term, because you will end up at a place where you're miserable anyway. The real metric, if you want to call it a metric, which already puts you kind of in a bind, but the real metric of self-improvement is really your own level of contentment. How fulfilled are you in your life? And how much can you realize that your own life fulfillment has much more to do in which direction your life is headed in than just how productive are you at any given day. Like if you know that your life is absolutely falling apart and every day you just keep moving towards the falling apart status, then of course days feel like a slog and you just want to kind of resist everything and fall into instant pleasure and addiction because it feels like the quick way out. But if you take a sober look at your situation, destroying yourself actively in the short term is no solution at all. For me personally, it was a lot of existential pondering. Like I was philosophically so obsessed about the nature of reality and the nature of existence that I felt like there's no purpose for me in this world, or it is impossible to find purpose because life is inherently without purpose. And then I kind of had this narrative going on that I needed to find my purpose, I needed to find meaning, and I found this idea of abstinence or self-control super empowering. And then I always moved between feeling very empowered in my ability to control my actions and complete drug binges because I fell off. And now, since I already have fallen off, then let's completely indulge in this hedonistic side. And it always is this pendulum swing. If you have this identity of antagonism with one side of yourself. If there's one side of yourself that you think is bad and the other side that you think is good, there will always be this pendulum swing energy between these two parts. Because, one part is not accepting the other, when, as a matter of fact, both parts are you, or a part of you at least. So to want to kill one part is not the right approach. One part will dissolve over time if you don't feed it. But in order to not feed it, you cannot treat it like an enemy. If you treat it like an enemy, your energy will go towards resisting it. And you're fueling this enemy part as a consequence. Because then there's still a rivalry there. As long as you think about a part that you want to reject, you are empowering this because you are acting as if it shouldn't exist. So you always want to move with compassion and see things with love and kindness, even when a part of you, hates it or doesn't want to accept it. It's just treating yourself with, kindness, but not just yourself as like in general, but like a specific aspect of you. For example, if you are addicted to scrolling on social media for 6 hours a day, then looking at this pattern honestly and see how it is serving you and being kind towards your need towards it, and then still saying no, is what will remove the polarity over it. All negative emotion, like guilt and shame and all of the stuff, they might be a good signal on the short term for what it is you actually need or want, but they are a bad long-term signal if you want to rely on negative emotion in order to be pushed around. Because that's exactly what spiritual wisdom is trying to avoid. To not be pushed around by your emotions. To not have to do something because a desire tells you that you have to do it. So the negative emotion can be followed or cannot be followed. There's not really a good or bad in there. Like oftentimes it is wisdom. But it also doesn't mean that it is like some ultimate truth and your guilt is justified. I find there's so much guilt when I talk to people and do my ego architecture audits. There's always some huge form of guilt about being in a certain way, some certain addiction, some certain belief system, some certain way of thinking about stuff. And it is really difficult to want to talk about the parts that you feel so guilty of that you're not aware that it is even guilt anymore. Like oftentimes these parts are just so suppressed and so hidden from your own conscious awareness that it doesn't even register. So when then you hear something that goes or like justifies or reveals this hidden aspect of guilt or shame within you, then the immediate reaction is to deny it, like to pretend that this isn't the case or this isn't true, because you have built an identity that tries to identify with the opposite of what this guilt is trying to tell you. Like if you feel extremely guilty for having cheated in your relationship, for example, and you now have constructed this identity of being extremely loyal or needing to be loyal, then any aspect that reminds you of how you used to be or what you did is then met with immense resistance, and it will always put your identity in an unstable structure. You might know this from other things that you try to do in your day-to-day life, that the moment you are in this weird relationship with this action, like can be your work or going to the gym or whatever action it is, the moment you are in this combative relationship with it, it stops being fun. It starts to feel like a slog. It starts to feel like a burden instead of something that you just do. And being in a spot where it's something that you just do is where the positive pattern reinforces itself. And you are actually in a collaborative relationship with it. And this is really the key, to be in a collaborative relationship with yourself and to understand your mind is not a monolith. You're not one thing. You have so many different sections in your brain, so many different experiences trying to, move you around or moving you around. And where you put your energy and where you spend your energy is the ability of your conscious awareness and the ability to consciously choose what you want independent of momentary desire. And to understand that you will sometimes be less motivated to work if you slept well last night, or you will maybe want to sleep instead of go for a walk if you just ate. Like these stupidly simple things often have way more impact on us than we like to think. And then if you put on it a personal narrative that says you are a failure or you're not succeeding in what you're trying to do, when it was just a biological consequence of the lack of sleep, for example, then this entire identity structure is fake. And there's so much. I'm giving very simple examples, but maybe you can find something in your life where it fits very well. But there's so much that we kind of make personal and make it as if it is our own failure and give ourselves such a deep sense of responsibility without really acknowledging how much our environment has shaped a certain decision. And a lot of people who are very strong in their sense of identity and have like a very rigid ego, they don't like to put responsibility on their environment, and they don't like to put the influences on other people, because then they lose their sense of control and they lose their sense of power. And the more you abdicate this sense of power and sense of control, weirdly enough, you start to become more aligned with what it is that you actually want and the power that you are truly in charge to do this, because nobody's forcing you around, not other people and not even yourself, because you are just working with yourself now. You are in cooperation. This is both key in spirituality and also in just classical self-improvement, because it aligns your actions with your authentic desires and doesn't let yourself get pushed around by your own false egoic identity.